to developers across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? Attaccare! Attaccare!
You're listening to the dulcet sounds and beautiful noise coming from Emilia Romagna earlier this morning. About 13 hours ago. That is AC Milan hoisting up their first Scudetto in 11 years.
You've waited a decade to hear those sounds, haven't you, Nick?
Mate,
and you're letting everyone else know about it, that's for sure.
All I gotta say is it's about damn time. It's about damn time, Lachie.
I'm happy for you, man.
It's about
really
damn time. You're listening to the Euro Show here on FNR Football Nation Radio. Nick Tabano and Lachie Flannigan here, taking you through all the weekend's action. We'll go through all the title races, Serie A, the crazy end to the Premier League season. Yeah. Unfortunately for yourself, the Scottish League Cup final. I want to hear about your experience at the Imperial. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And we'll also look ahead to this weekend's Champions League final. 'Cause it seems like that's really one of the only things kind of left this season in European football, Lachie.
Yeah, it is just pretty much the final frontier. I've enjoyed I enjoyed the Premier League quite a lot last night. That was fun to watch. Obviously, Serie A was on much less of a knife's edge. It was more like a rolling pin's edge. It was pretty right. It was pretty safe. It was pretty safe for Milan, especially once they got the goal, through Rafael early into the game. But yeah, look, the less said about the Scottish stuff, the better. Really painful turn of events against Rangers. But look, Nick, as a Hearts fan, you go into games against Rangers and Celtic expecting to lose, and that way you're never disappointed, and every time you win, it's a pleasant surprise. This was not one of those surprises, so that's the way it goes sometimes,
You win some, You lose some.
Well, no, in Scotland, you win a few, you lose most of them.
Yeah, especially if you're a fan of Hearts, unfortunately.
Well, literally any club not named Rangers
or Celtic. But, I mean, you pushed it to extra time. We'll go through all that a little bit later again.
Sure.
I want to hear about mainly your experience out the Imperial. Like, that sounded like you had a really fun night. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to get down, Lachie. Like, it was a busy night with the Ulliga men's.
And you were too busy. You were getting preemptive sleep.
Yeah,
preemptive sleep in advance of the Sunday night or the Monday morning.
Yes,
I guess.
it was the Sunday just absolute slog. I mean, it was work all day. It was into TNC, getting some sleep after that. Managing.
How much sleep did you get?
Well, this is what happened. So yesterday I got home from Amy Park at around 9:30. I had something to eat. I watched the Collingwood highlights. I'd seen nothing, and I was very happy about that. I rolled into bed at around 10 to 11. Slept until about 5 to 2. I actually slept really easily before the game. I thought I wasn't going to be able to sleep at all. I thought I was going to be way too excited. Alarm went off, sprang out of bed. But you know those first few minutes when you have to fight off the initial stages of sleep?
Oh, yeah, massively.
And you just need to like power through those first few minutes. But you get through those first few minutes, you'll be fine. And by that stage, once, Milan, I guess, took the early advantage.
That must have
there
been
was no turning back from there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that game. Before I went to sleep, I was seeing videos on Twitter of the Milan fans taking over the train station in Milan.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And
that looked amazing.
It just made me think, oh, my God, I really want to be there. They were playing away against Sassuolo, but out of the 22,000 seats that they've got there, apparently there were 18,000 Milan fans. So it was basically a home game.
It certainly
on the road.
sounded that way when the goals went.
Yeah. So I think Sassuolo just kind of took the L. They get the ticket sales anyway, but they were just like, we've got nothing to play for. Like, just
I guess you could say Sassuolo fans, no tickets.
No tickets.
No tickets.
No tickets for the Sassuolo fans. But in the end, it was a very nervous start. For those who haven't seen the highlights, Milan did everything but score in like the first 20, 25 minutes. Chances cleared off the line, opportunities just being saved, going wide. It was everything but the goal happening. Actually, it was more the first 15 because Olivier Giroud scored in the 17th minute.
Yeah.
And
it was funny because you could forgive, given in the circumstances, Milan having a little bit of a nervy start or having a wobble or something throughout this game, particularly given that, as you mentioned last week, the history that exists between these two sides, the difficulty that you've faced against Sassuolo in the past. But Milan came out with a clear mission and they were not faltering. Like they were, there was ticker. I could have definitely suspected going into this game that there might be a bit of a stumble. There might be a moment wherein to get their tails up a little bit, especially because they were pretty much in control in their game as well. But no, there was the minute the first whistle went in this game, Milan were like, okay, we are winning this Scudetto. I watched the game and then watched the highlights back when I woke up in the morning. Did Sassuolo have like a single?
They had a couple chances.
I can scarcely remember like a meaningful chance that they had in this game.
Magnon made a couple saves. He made a save in the end of the first half-ish, and then he made another save in junk time, and that was about
for the most part, like it was Milan
really
were
tested.
peppering
the
XG,
goals. There were 18 shots to 15, but Milan's XG was 3.42 and Sassuolo's was 0.54. Milan just peppered the goals. And in the end, Olivier Giroud with 2 goals, Franck Kessie with 1, all those 3 goals happening in the first 36 minutes. Rafael Leao with 3 assists. He was unplayable on that left-hand side. He's
unbelievable. Ended up taking out Player of the Year as well. Rightly so.
Double-digit goals, double-digit assists.
I mean, thinking back to the last, 2 to 3 games that we've been following of Milan in the time that I've been on this show, and pretty much all of those games he's been instrumental. Like the assist that he got, I can't remember which game it was, a couple of weeks ago.
Against
Verona for Tonali. Like, it was literally just his run down the left and then the cut across the face.
All the goals were the same. It was all the same play.
Yeah.
It was cutbacks, and there was one. I think it was for Giroud's second where he had two players on him, but he just managed to keep his balance.
Yeah,
get right to the touchline.
But it was like
cut it
all
back.
of this stuff down the last stretch has been orchestrated by him.
He's an amazing player. And he's only 22.
He's 22, yeah. I could not believe that.
I'm not going to lie. There was a part when he first signed for Milan, he looked very raw. There was definite ability, but it was going to take time. But he has grown this season immeasurably as a left winger. And Stefano Pioli has unlocked that, especially with the way Milan play, looking to play off the break. It suits him perfectly, and he's only going to get better, which is quite scary.
Well, I remember a time once, it might have been an episode of Breakfast on FNR, so it would have been like 2 years ago now, where we had you on. I think it was me and Athos, maybe me and Josh Parrish, but we had you on to discuss the Milan game, and I remember very distinctly clashing with you over Rafael and being very insistent that he was not. Didn't have the facilities to be a central striker necessarily.
No.
And as you very rightly pointed out, since that point, Stefano Pioli has recognised what he's got on offer, shifted him more traditionally out to that sort of left-hand side. And I think it's safe to say it's paid dividends.
There was a worry and my brother and I were talking about this afternoon, that we both felt that he was going to end up like another Mbaye Niang. Very similar players when they arrived at Milan, very raw players, strikers coming through the junior ranks, moved out to the left but never fulfilled their potential, show glimpses. But in the end, it never worked out for them. But Stefano Pioli's been able to unlock something in Leao, and I think it's not even just Stefano Pioli. I think it's with the players he works with. I mean, the impact, and we'll talk about this in a sec on a more broader note, but Zlatan Ibrahimovic, you can't have a better mentor than that, right? Like an Olivier Giroud, guys who set the standard, have helped him mature, because he was a very immature player when he arrived at Milan. There was questions about his mentality. Milan almost sold him after a season because they were that worried about his mentality. He almost signed for Wolves at the start of last season, the typical Portuguese pipeline that goes there through Jorge Mendes. But in the end, he stayed, and it's been the best thing that's happened for Milan. And they're going to have their hands full trying to keep him in the next couple seasons, because clubs are apparently Real Madrid have him in their sights as the Kylian Mbappe plan B.
The replacement. Wow.
So
that feels maybe slightly generous, because Mbappe is that good, but I can see it.
Well, he's kind of been one of the best. Like in this last month, he's been easily in probably the top 10 attackers in the world.
I mean, I guess
from a holistic.
I mean, he's player of the year in a very an extremely competitive top 5 league. Like it's hard to argue that he's not in the conversation in the realms of what you're suggesting.
Absolutely, but look, just on this game, the fact that Milan were able to close this out is so pleasing, because there was a point, I think all Milan fans felt this, going into the game in particular, that the Milan of old would not win this game. The Milan of old would bottle this game. And there was that feeling going into Hellas Verona. There was that feeling going into Atalanta. But as you mentioned, once the game started and once that first goal went in, because if they didn't score when they did, I was a bit worried, thinking, the more they keep Sassuolo in this game, the better it is for them. Milan's going to eventually start to drop their heads. They're going to find themselves vulnerable on the break. But once the damn wall burst, it was a question. To use a quote from Dennis Committee off AFL Live back in the day, it just remained to be seen by how much they would win that game in the end, because they were all over them. They could have won that game by more. I mean, the amount of chances Milan missed, they had a fourth in the net as well. Zlatan Ibrahimovic was offside for the goal, and that would have been as well 4 assists for Rafael Leao too. It was an incredible performance. And even when the queue went in the rack in the last 20 minutes, they were still pushing. They wanted more. So in the end, when you look at this season as a whole, Milan have probably done this. We've said they've probably gone a year early, winning the Scudetto. but the foundations of that this squad has in terms of building blocks for next season and going forward, this team can only get better. It's a very young core. There's obvious areas that they need to address going into the off-season, namely on the right-hand side, namely at striker, namely at 10. There's probably going to be a few signings at centre-back and also in the middle of the park. But you look at the youngsters that are sort of forming that core in around those positions. Teo Hernandez, Sandro Tonali, Rafael Leao, Fikayo Tomori, Pierre Kalulu, Davide Calabria is still only 25. It's felt like he's been there forever. Ismail Benacer replaces Franck Kessie in that starting lineup. You look as well to guys like Brahim Diaz, who came off the bench this morning. There is a lot of talent in that team. And there's only a few players over the age of 30. And in terms of regular squad players, I mean, we don't know if Zlatan's going to come back next season, whether he will retire or play on at Milan or another club. Simon Kjaer did his knee. He's obviously...
God, he looked like an absolute...
He looked like he hadn't shaved since he did his knee.
He looked like Thor's cousin when he came on with the Milan shirt too, except the medal today.
It looks like he'd genuinely been in a cave ever since he did his knee. Yeah. And he thought... I wouldn't be surprised if it's some statement like, for him to come back and then he comes out with that ponytail beard combo for the first
slowly morphing into Philip Mexer.
He might be. I hope not. I hope he can add some freakish goals, but just not the complete irrationality at the other end and getting into fights with players. But other than that, I mean, Alessandro Florenzi, Junior Messias, they're both on loan deals. A lot of the rest of the team, those guys over the age of 30 are squad players, the backup keepers. It's a team that is built, and if they make the right moves this offseason, they are only going to get better. They are only going to get better, which is scary to think because they have done this a year ahead of time. These players already, there's going to be more just natural development with these players, and especially working in Pioli's system. It's exciting.
And that's why I think more than any individual player, even someone like Rafael Leao, who has emerged as the player of the season in Italy at the end of the campaign, that is why no one deserves more credit for this outcome than Stefano Pioli. Because you go back to the start of this season, this was not a squad, and is even still not a squad that is predetermined for success or greatness. Like this is, on paper, this is probably not even the best squad in Italy. Maybe the third best.
You probably even argue maybe even outside the top four.
Yeah.
On paper,
purely on paper, on CV reputation, this is maybe the third or fourth or even fifth best squad in Italy. This is not an outfit for whom success was a guarantee at the start of this season. There's been plenty of promise over the last couple of years, but Milan fans' trust issues, like promise only means so much. The extent to which Pioli has been able to not only identify players, who are maybe being undervalued, but then bring them in and maximize their output is unbelievable. Like even some of the names that are just springing to mind for me right now. Yeah. I mean, Fikayo Tomori, a player who was definitely a good player. No one was in any doubt of that. But on the outer at Chelsea and, brought in Milan for a pretty reasonable price for a centre-back of his talent and his age, and has been an excellent player for Milan. Salamakis, it was at Anderlecht. It was playing in Belgium before.
He was signed because Anthony Robinson failed his medical only like hours before on deadline day. This is January 2020.
And again,
he came from nowhere.
A player who not a single person when he signed, and came into San Siro would have said that is a Serie A winner right there. No one would have said that, and no one would have expected that. I mean, even someone like more of a role player like Alessandro Florenzi, like it just taken off like the offcuts of another club in Italy who didn't want him.
Yeah.
And he's provided like some really important goals, has performed a pretty good role across this season. And like there are plenty other players.
Yeah, mate, I could go all day with that.
No, so could I. But like the extent to which he has just been able to extract every last ounce of every single one of these players, even Olivier Giroud, who we need to talk about more.
We do need to talk about Giroud.
Is part of this as well. The fact that he's been able to do that, not with just a couple, but with the vast majority of this squad, is a testament to his coaching quality. And I'm interested and excited to see how he approaches the next challenge in his career, which is to be the man at the top of the mountain and have other people chasing after him, and how he handles that. Because I think, we're talking about in my view, a seriously top manager here.
And there's another goal in mind. Milan have European pedigree. The goal in mind has always been to restore Milan back to its former greatness.
And you're going to be in a decent pot as well.
Pot A. And that
the best
means,
pot.
Oh, absolutely, it is the best pot. You don't want to be in pot C or pot. Milan were in pot D, and that's why they got that terrible group this season. But it's Pioli's story is amazing. I mean, the commentators talking about it a lot, but he was being chastised by his mum for years, saying, you haven't won anything. You haven't done anything as a coach. Like the only thing he won, I think, was like an under-17s trophy with Bologna. Like when he first started coaching. He had failed stints at Inter, a very failed stint at Fiorentina, which almost ended his coaching career. He almost got them relegated. His best all he'd done was, he took over Bologna a few years ago and did a fantastic job with them. He did an okay job with Lazio, but he'd never really been that guy. I remember it when he first signed for Milan. I was thinking, what are we doing? Like this, you can't get Stefano Pioli. He hasn't done anything to suggest that he's going to turn things around. And to his credit, he's one of the best managers in the game. And the players speak about, the change in mentality and how he gets along so well with the players. And he sets realistic demands, but as you said, extracts everything out of his players because his players want to play for him. Even players from other teams have spoken about it, that he's one of the best coaches players have worked with because he gets to know the players on a deep level. He's able to get that out of them. And you speak about not just Pioli, about identifying talent. This goes above them. Paolo Maldini and Ricky Massara, who came in, Ricky Massara, a real stats man, data nerd, an eye for talent, came in with Maldini in 2019, replacing Leonardo at the time, and completely changed everything. The players they signed that 2019-20 off-season, they're the players taking them forward now. Teo Hernandez, Rafael Leao, Ismail Benacer.
Hernandez is a great example of it.
Yeah.
Too. Like you just looked at you look through the whole squad and there's just examples of what we're talking about everywhere you look.
And remember, in that first season Pioli took over, Milan were this close to getting rid of him and going down the Ralph Rangnick route.
Yeah.
And it was actually, and I just a cheap plug to my own Twitter, but I did an extensive thread about the history of Milan playing Hellas Verona, Atalanta, Sassuolo, why there is so much significance in winning all those games. But the other thing that I failed to mention in all that, despite the fact that Sassuolo losses had almost bred the end of coaches, and Milan wins against Sassuolo had bred the start of new careers like Donnarumma, Locatelli and Leao, who scored that 6-second goal against Sassuolo. That win against Sassuolo in the restart of 2019-20 was the win that actually proved to be the catalyst for Milan to say, we're not going to go down the Rangnick route. We're going to stick with Stefano Pioli. We're going to keep going, and we're not going to move on with Paolo Maldini. Ivan Gazidis at that point said, you know what, I know you got your thoughts about Gazidis. But as well, I
just love hearing that guy's name.
Credit has to go to Gazidis as well, because he came in and he started this with them.
He was a bit of a joke to many people when he came in.
He was. Look what he did with Arsenal.
Yeah, not a lot of people would have expected that he would preside over something like this. But I think you've really hit it there in terms of the point I was trying to make before. Like, not a squad of champions, but Stefano Pioli has made them believe and realise that, in fact, they are.
And it's then driven by those senior players. They signed Zlatan and Simon Kjaer in the same off-season, in the same January transfer window, and they're two guys that are winners, two guys who help drive that standard, two veteran the veteran
maybe even another person I'd throw into that equation.
You mentioned him before that they brought in this off-season, Olivier Giroud, who started the season quite slowly. He had a few injuries, but his run from February until now has been amazing. They're talking about extracting every ounce out of him. He's basically played every minute in that period with Zlatan on the sidelines, with Rebic on the sidelines, and he has scored in almost every big game that Milan have needed something out from him. So, scored in the derby twice, biggest game. That was the turning point right there. Scored away at Napoli. Scored at Lazio. Scored it twice this morning. I think from memory, he scored against Roma in the second meeting at home as well. So bar Juventus, he's basically scored against all the big teams in all these big games when you need someone to step up and be in the right place at the right time. And Lachie, I want to ask you this because I was having this, again, same conversation with my brother. Is Olivier Giroud the most underappreciated striker of the past decade, considering where he was? I mean, coming into Arsenal from Montpellier when he won Ligue 1, came to Arsenal, big shoes to fill at the time, Robin van Persie at the door. But there was always that sense of, people always underappreciating how good he actually was, even at a national team level. How have you seen Olivier Giroud, I guess, from the moment he walked into Emirates to now? Do you see him in that same light?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he will go down as someone that, there's that sort of iconic meme or joke about Olivier Giroud that always does the rounds on social media, that in a decade's time, people will show their children clips of Giroud and they'll think he's the best player in the world or was the best player in the world because of the quality of goals that he scored. But we're talking, if we actually look back and ignore the kind of joke highlights reel thing, we're talking about a man who has won trophies pretty much everywhere he's gone. To win the French division, yes, it was before the era of PSG dominance, but it was a very tight French competition back then. To win it with Montpellier and to be the leading goal scorer in that side, unbelievable achievement. I mean, Giroud, when he played for Arsenal, obviously Arsenal not as successful, but was part of a side that brought trophies back to the Gunners.
We won 3 FA Cups.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the time, I can tell you, even that for Arsenal fans was a massive deal because it had been such a barren run. And throughout that whole stretch, he was scoring, despite the criticisms of him being, not a reliable finisher or anything like that. He was scoring 10 goals plus every season. And what's more than that is he was setting goals up for other players with his sort of IQ, his ability to drop off the line and play first-time passes in behind to wingers and
very intelligent
midfielders who are making runs on. I mean, the best example of that, his outside the foot pass in, I think it was 2013-14 for Jack Wilshere.
The Norwich game.
Norwich goal. That is something that he was capable of doing every week, ignoring the goals.
Yeah.
Ignoring the goals. Then you have Chelsea, Europa League,
Champions League.
Clinical finish in that game against Arsenal to decide the contest. Champions League as
and
well.
The FA Cup.
FA Cup too, and now Milan winning the Serie A there. This, you cannot dispute the pedigree of this man, and I don't think it's a coincidence that all of these places he's been involved at have gone on to achieve not bigger things that they had than when they started, but it's not a coincidence that everywhere he's gone, the sides that have been involved with him have picked up important trophies, with his goals certainly contributing to those runs.
And you're forgetting as well, he won a World Cup.
The World Cup. And he is he's on the cusp of becoming France's greatest
How many is he behind Henry now? Maybe 4?
I think it's like 2 or 3, and he's going to do it in less games. His goal per game ratio is better than Thierry Henry for France. And mind you, Thierry Henry sometimes did play as a wide player for the national team. But a striker who is considered as one of the greatest of all time, and at a national level, Giroud's goals per game is comparable. I think it's even better. And also, he's going to overtake the legend, the king, Thierry Henry.
One of the greatest players of all time. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think Giroud has been a victim of people having some people having a very binary interpretation of what a striker is and what a striker should do, which is score goals. Strikers are capable of so much more than that, and Giroud is that kind of player. But he's shown, particularly with his important goals this season, he's got the finishing ability to match too.
So he's scored 48 goals in 112 games for France. Thierry Henry has scored 51 goals for France in 123 games. So it goes to show that, if he can get it done in the next couple, there's a whole stack of international games in June, which you think he's going to be part of that French. I think he already has been called up to that French side, and it's no surprise. But he'll get there, and
he has been an integral. I remember conversations of people, even in the 2018 World Cup, with why is Giroud starting when you've got Griezmann and Mbappe? You can play these two together. But yeah, Giroud might not be always be the scorer of goals, but he was the link man.
Yeah.
He was the player that made everyone else around him work.
Absolutely.
Griezmann is better for having Giroud nearby. Mbappe was better in that team for having Giroud nearby, and then Giroud picked up a few goals himself.
So I'm just having a look at Giroud's goals this season and when they came. And it's amazing having a look at these and understanding the gravity of each of these fixtures. It's like he refused to score in not important games. So 2 goals in Milan's first home game of the season, right? Announcing yourself to the fans.
Yeah.
His next goal didn't come until a game against Hellas Verona, where he scored the goal to get them back into the game. They were down 2-0 at halftime, scored the goal to get them back into the game. A 1-0 win against Torino, his goal. Didn't score for a while because he had a few injuries. Goal against Roma at home, always big beating Roma. Goal in the Coppa Italia against Genoa, which sent the game to extra time. Obviously, Milan ended up making the semis of said Coppa Italia. Next goal's coming in the derby. Both goals in that come from behind 2-1 win. Days later, scored a double against Lazio in the Cup. Then he scored the winner against Napoli, the only goal in that game on the road. Then the next goal came against Lazio on the road, the equaliser in that game. And then 2 goals this morning in the clincher. It's like he just, we talk about big game players and players being clutch. But Olivier Giroud sums that up. I mean, he's a big-time player. He thrives on the big occasion. We spoke to, so you weren't there on Saturday night, the Western United Melbourne victory game. But we spoke to Alexander Prijovic about the same thing. He said he always felt that in a big game, I wanted to be that guy. Like, this is what I'm there for. I want to be that guy who thrives on that pressure. Is Olivier Giroud maybe of that same caliber? Maybe he just feels like he can rise to the occasion in those big games too.
I think it's hard to argue that he's not. He clearly is. I mean, you go through that stat sheet that you just rattled off of the teams he scored against. It's some of, if not the most important games throughout the stretch for Milan, and he's come up trumps in almost every single one of them. It's very hard to argue with that. And I think it's not just the type of player he is with Giroud that I think means that people judge him perhaps unfairly, but it's also his actual sort of physical build. Like, you don't see the tall, bulky striker that much in world football anymore. Like players that look like him playing up front are a dying breed, and Alex Prijovic is another one of that. But the common theme between both of those two is, while they're not conventional in the sense of the modern game, what they bring to the other players who are more typical fast, speedy players in and around the forward line. They sound like Triple M then. What they're able to provide to the people around them is just the value of that to a team cannot be understated. So he might not be the favourite player of the average fan, but I reckon 9 times out of 10 you ask his forward teammates who their favourite player is, and they're going to say Olivier Giroud. And
I think he's a great guy to have around the locker room. I mean, it seems like everyone's getting along with him on his Instagram. They're always taking photos with Giroud. We know Giroud's a definitely want it. I would love to take a photo with Olivier Giroud if I had the opportunity. But I got to say, look,
I just love to take a photo of Olivier Giroud. I don't even have to be in it.
Before we wrap up the Milan chat, let's talk about the trophy presentation.
Yes, please. I was hoping you would say that.
So the one thing I loved,
so much to unpack.
I was really worried when the game ended they were just going to cut the feed and they weren't going to show the trophy presentation. I was so tired, but I was like, I have to power through this trophy presentation because there's like the lull after the game. And I thought, all right, let's power through this. And the trophy presentation started off, first of all, with we had the 2 presenters coming through the arch. And I don't know if you saw this, but the lady on the right who's coming through didn't create enough space for herself, so she whacked her face with the trophy by accident, and it was caught on the Paramount stream in the US, and you just hear all the pundits just lose it. And I saw it, I thought, am I the only one who's picked this up? But it was just like, we've seen our fair share of trophy celebration gaffes, but she tried to play it off. You know, when you like have a trip in public and you like, hope no one saw that, but it's like the eyes of the world just saw that happen to you. But anyways.
I mean that gaff aside, I will admit that I went to sleep after the game, and then I realised that the trophy presentations were on. The full 40 minutes of them were posted on
YouTube,
on the BN YouTube channel. So I was like, I've got to watch this because Nick will obviously have watched the whole thing in its entirety. And the level of, especially having watched like the Premier League stuff, like the level of pageantry and style associated with this trophy presentation, which is unbelievable. The Serie A theme playing for
on a
like
loop.
the entire thing on a loop. You just hear the violins just amazing. The fact they brought every single player out individually, and it was a long walk.
Oh, it was
from the players' race to where the trophy.
They had
present
to shake
stand
hands with
was
everyone,
set
yeah.
up was like a good 20-30 meters, and they walked the whole way. They're high-fiving left and right,
Yeah.
get the whole team, and then they go up to join the players, and they've got like, you know, because just walking out, it wouldn't be enough for your average player. So
No.
then you got people like was it Kalulu?
Yeah, he's got
walks
the
out
champagne bottle
with
on his shoulder.
with the champagne bottle.
He's not even legal to drink in America.
Over the shoulder. You have Zlatan and Teemu Bakayoko,
with
who
the cigars.
Look, he's been an important part of the fabric of this Milan project over the years. He was a big player in seasons gone by, but
Yeah.
since he's come in, he hasn't done that much. He's been that guy on the group project who takes the A+, even though they've maybe done the bibliography. But he was walking out there at the cigar,
The peroxided hair for the occasion, yeah.
and he was dapping up every single person that he could. It was just amazing.
You know what we
commitment to
needed?
art from the nation of Italy. It's just 10 out of 10. Respect.
For all the players, we needed that. You know that Stephen A. Smith meme where he's walking through it. Need that for like each of the players. But Zlatan's one, like that was peak Zlatan. Like coming out, cigar in hand, champagne, does like the podium finish kind of spray, you know, arms out to the fans, you know, that you just needed pyro. Like that was the only thing that was missing, but it was great because that was like the symbol. I think that was the symbolic end for Zlatan. You know, came to Milan, said I want to restore him to their former glory, and he ends
he
it
did the exact same thing a decade ago with this side.
It was very fitting.
You know the phrase "not to be outdone," like what you're talking about. I feel like that phrase "not to be outdone" was just made for Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Like anything you can do, I can do better. He is that guy.
The other highlights from that trophy presentation was Alexis Salamaker's trying to do the Like I was getting ready because he loves his Instagram. I was ready for him to do have some sort of Instagram live setup. The other moment I loved was Tatarashanu being first and being the only keeper to walk out with his gloves on. So
they're all wearing Milan jerseys.
Yeah, and he had his keeper gloves still on, and I found that very symbolic. Because we spoke about his famous moment in the derby, and that proved to be pivotal because he doesn't make that save. Inter's won the Scudetto.
Yeah, it's true.
So he's wearing those same gloves. They looked quite, old and ragged. Maybe he kept them
Maybe it was the
from
gloves,
November.
yeah.
The other one that I love, just a wholesome moment, Daniele Maldini. Third generation Milan player now in the Maldini family to have won a Scudetto. Cesare,
Old
Paolo,
father-son pick. Yeah.
going over to Paolo, his dad, and having a moment with him was really nice. But and then as well to end with Alessio Romagnoli, who he's lost his spot in the team over the last 2 seasons, but he was the last bastion of the banter era. He's been there through the thick and thin. He reward for sticking around for so long. He won't be there next season, but it was fitting to see him have that moment at the end.
And again, similar to Bakayoko in a sense, hasn't featured or been as prominent this season. But in terms of contributing to the fabric of this squad year on year, building the chapters that's led to what has now happened, Romagnoli is part of that conversation because there is a time when he was a very important defender for this team. The other one I wanted to mention, because he has escaped any references to him, is the scorer of the third goal in this game, who sealed it up and had that moment at the end, walking out in front of the fans, did his little dance, got to appreciate them before he leaves for new pastures, is Frank Kessie.
Yeah. Look, I've got a lot of feelings about how he's handled this whole situation, and I won't be the first person to say it, but he's handled it so poorly. But
sure,
I'm glad that he's leaving and we know he's leaving. This isn't like the Çalhanoğlu-Donnarumma situation last year where they won. Well, Milan made the Champions League, big moment after the game, and they're getting all excited and then they just decided to walk. Çalhanoğlu signs for Inter. I had a good laugh at seeing the old screenshots from his announcement video of him saying that he wanted to win the Scudetto again, and, he's back at the San Siro winning the game but not winning the Scudetto.
He won, but at what cost?
Yeah, but look, as well, Kessie has been a great servant for Milan. He's scored some important goals throughout his time. He's had some important moments. He is a polarising player. I won't be the first person to say it again. I won't be the last that there's been a lot of frustrating moments with Franck Kessie, with his discipline, with the way he plays. But it was nice to see him get that last moment. I think it's just now's a good time to close that chapter.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice parting gift, shall we say, to have sealed it up.
Yeah, and I think the other moment that got me, and I felt it the most, actually just thinking about it was, speaking about players who deserve this opportunity, I was just thinking about players who had been at Milan, who had been there for so long and didn't have that opportunity to have that success through that period of dark times. And one player that came to mind was Giacomo Bonaventura. And he left before the start of last season, but he left before Milan could play Champions League. He was their best player for so long throughout that period. Even I can't believe I'm saying this, even guys like Suso. Suso had some big moments for Milan at times. He hasn't had that opportunity to be part of it. The other guys, Donnarumma, Çalhanoğlu, they fed themselves and they decided they wanted to leave and they made their own beds. As far as I'm concerned, if they feel upset about missing out on yesterday, they had the opportunity to stick around. They didn't. So seeing, Mike Mignon have that chance and be part of something special like that, yes, they were special. All those players, all of them, they deserve this. And Stefano Pioli as well. So, look, congratulations to Milan. I can't wait already for next season. I can't wait for the off-season to see what they do. Without this becoming just a Milan tribute show, we probably should move on. But, again, they've proved a lot of people wrong and they're only going to get better. With the signings that they want to make this off-season, whoever it might be, they can only go up from here.
And it just makes next season in Italy, I think, all the more interesting because the caliber of coaches in all of the big clubs is significant. And Juve, they're down bad at the moment.
Think about who they've already signed.
Exactly. And
Paul Pogba's back. They brought in Di Maria. I mean, he's a bit washed, but Di Maria still has some quality.
Yeah, but they will more than likely be back next season. Inter, they will probably
be back up there next season.
They'll probably bring in a few more players.
Napoli, Roma are going to be better with another season under Mourinho.
Exactly. I look, as much as Milan have won this one, next season, I don't think they're. I think it's going to be it was tight this year, but even tighter with potentially more teams involved next year.
But it's fantastic for the league to have competitive teams because now this is when these teams need to translate this into Europe. It is about damn time we see some relevance of Italian teams.
And put the word out there that we back up.
We back up, yes.
We back up.
And Milan, I'll tell you what, them being back in the Champions League and being a force in the Champions League next season, I really hope we get that. So we'll wait and see what we have in store. But before we go to a break and touch on a bit of the other news that's going on, the other title race over in England, the crazy title race, Salernitana staying up with a 4-0 loss. So they got spanked by Udinese at home.
They got paddled by Udinese.
Cagliari drew against Venezia, who decided not to go to the beach, but decided to, play spoiler. Cagliari, I think, had over 30 shots on goal, but the game ended 0-0. So in the end, Cagliari go down, Salernitana stay up. It's a great story that Davide Nicola has been able to keep Salernitana in Serie A. Really excited to see them go again next year. There's going to be some big names coming out from those three relegated sides, from Genoa, Cagliari, Venezia, who will be on their way out. One by the name of João Pedro, who I think is going to gain a lot of interest from some good sides. And as well, one player from Venezia as well who could be on his way to the A-Liga men's by the name of Nani. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. So in the end, Salernitana, another season in Serie A. Can't wait to see them back there again.
Yeah, I mean, Cagliari, some of the players are going to have some difficult nights thinking about a few of the chances that they spurned, particularly Nandes, Bellanova as well, had a few big ones that he should have saved. João Pedro as well, but I guess he's probably already got his mind
firmly set.
Where I mean, who are from this side? Who are the most likely to sort of
from Cagliari
find another? You would say that João Pedro and Cranio are the most likely. Is there anyone else?
I think the majority of this team will probably get picked up. they've actually got a lot of quality in this squad. Cragno, definitely. Bellanova, he's a good young fullback. I think he'll get picked up. Nandes, I think, will definitely be picked up. Both Pedro and Pavoletti, I think, will find themselves back in Serie A. Keita Balde as well, I think, wouldn't be surprised to see him back in Serie A next season. Lovato is a young centre-back. I think he's out on loan from Atalanta. Yes. So he'll be back, definitely back in Serie A next season.
Kevin Strootman's not going to be playing Serie B.
I don't know if he'll be playing for Cagliari in Serie B, and I don't think he'd be the first name on people's lips to be picked up. But hey, he'll be around. And if you're looking at Venezia, I mean, there'll be a few of these guys. I think they'll be on their way back. Ethan Ampadu, who's still on loan from Chelsea. Mattia Caldara. I mean, again, as I mentioned, Nani on the way out. Might see him down here. So we'll see what happens with that. But in terms of promotion to Serie A at the moment, so next year, if you're keeping your eye on that, it's the return of Cremonese, a very historic football club in Italian circles. We haven't seen them in Serie A for a very long time. And also Lecce, who were up in Serie A a few years ago. It's good to see they're coming back. I've always got a soft spot for Lecce because you think about Lecce, proper Serie A sides, like, vintage Serie A. Lecce's right up there. They've still got Massimo Corda up top, who's been around for donkey's years. He's going to be that guy leading the line again. But one spot remaining, one spot now has been determined, two-legged playoff for the final spot between Monza and Pisa. So we're going to get another new team coming up next season. Monza, who are actually owned by Silvio Berlusconi and have Adriano Galliani on their books as well. I want them up there, man. Like, they've got some serious NRI names like Gabi Paletta, Luca Marone. They've got Marco D'Alessandro. What else have we got here? Just scrolling through. They used to have Jeremy Menez a while ago. They had Balotelli for a little bit, but he's outscoring 5 goals now in Turkey in a game. And also Pisa. I mean, Pisa, big name city. Who wouldn't want to go to an away day in Pisa? They've got some decent players of their own, but they're also a very young team too. So I'm looking forward to seeing who comes away with that final promotion spot next season. So keep an eye on that. But Lachie, let's take a really quick breather. When we come back,
believe it or not, there was another title.
There was, and we've got to kind of rush through it because obviously at the end of the day, we do need to get off the airwaves as well. But anyways, you're listening to the Euro Show, brought to you by GIS, Global Institute of Sport. If you want to start your career in sport business, head over to gis.sport/FNR for more information. We're back just after this on the Euro Show with all the latest from the Premier League, how the title race played out, how the relegation battle played out as well, and even we'll throw in a bit of a cheeky reference to the 4th place sort of race there between Arsenal and Tottenham as well. We're back in just a second here on FNR.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? Attaccare!
Welcome back to the Euro Show here on FNR Football Nation Radio. Nick Tabano and Lachie Flannigan here today. Miss any of the show? Make sure you head over to the FNR podcast platforms. Go catch up with all our latest discussion. Well, we went through 45 minutes of AC Milan chat,
discussion
with a sprinkling of relegation battle as well. Obviously, this show today is as well brought to you by GIS, Global Institute of Sport. If you want to launch your global career in the football industry and study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis, head over to www.gis.sport/FNR. You can learn online with unique access if you're here in Melbourne to the MCG. Who wouldn't want to learn at the MCG? But if you're based abroad, you can go do the same thing in the UK. You can go hang out with our friend Thomas Flukabaku, who lives across the road from said Wembley Stadium, where you can actually go study.
Unfortunately, I don't have usually I like to do a bit of a Flu Manchu Instagram update.
No, we don't have
sort of
one.
relate it back to GIS, but sadly, no Instagram stories from the great man, but he still will be sitting on his balcony watching over you as you sit in Wembley and attend your classes in coaching and analytics is the latest one.
Yep, and obviously he's a former GIS alum, so make sure you get in touch with him. He'll be able to.
He'll be sitting there up in his towel,
up in the gantry,
the motorboard, and just tip it to you as you're walking down that big Wembley ramp.
Well, you can also go learn at the Etihad Stadium, which was also the home of an incredible finish to the Premier League title race this morning.
Indeed, it was.
Manchester City are champions. They got it done, but it wasn't without a scare. There was a moment where we started to feel like history was repeating itself from 2012, and it did, but to maybe a bit of a less dramatic end. It didn't go down to the last kick of the game. It was kind of sorted out a little bit more. But at one point, it seemed as if the improbable was going to happen. Aston Villa ahead 2-1. They actually took the lead through Philip Coutinho. There was a 7-minute window.
They were 2-0 up at one point.
No, sorry, they were 2-0. So there was a moment, 2-0 up with 15 minutes to go before Ike Gundogan scored a double either side of Rodri's equaliser. 3 goals in 5 minutes. Man City win 3-2. Liverpool beat Wolves 3-1, but it was not enough. In the end, City, much to the joy of Pep Guardiola, who was bawling his eyes out after the game, are champions yet again.
Yeah, and it took an absolutely Herculean effort to sort of pull that out of the proverbial in the space of 5 minutes, when you only had 15 minutes remaining in the game to do so, is a pretty mammoth effort. Look, I can't help but feel like Pep Guardiola and Manchester City fans there might be a small part of them in amidst all the celebrations that looks back on this and think, hang on, if we're capable of doing this, why couldn't we sort of replicate this sort of
in the
winning,
Champions
never
League.
say die mentality in Europe? But I guess that's exactly, maybe that goes some way to explaining exactly why they were able to achieve what they did, because this is a competition they've grown accustomed to winning, this group of players now. They know what they're capable of, and they know that they can pull it out of the fire in the way that they did, and it came with some absolute quality. I mean, Gundogan getting that initial header at the back post, the finish from Rodri with the side foot on the edge of the box. I mean, we've seen him do that quite a few times this season, that first time finish from the edge of the penalty area, but none of them even coming close to the level of importance as that one to level things up, and then Gundogan tapping home at the back post. Well, there's classic whipped in flat Manchester City crosses that goes across the entire face of the goal. Keeper can't get it, and then someone's there to knock it home. And in this case, it was Gundogan. Mo Salah obviously got the go-ahead goal for Liverpool in the second half, and he thought he'd done it. He was celebrating so much, but he had someone, I don't know if you've seen the photo, Nick, but he had someone in the crowd tell him that the score at City was 3-2 to City now, and his goal hadn't delivered the return that he thought it had, and you saw him walk away like not being able to sort of believe what had happened.
Just kind of like, what the hell, like all of that.
Yeah.
For nothing.
Yeah. It was, look, it's tough for Liverpool, but the thing is, if they win the Champions League, you know, they've done a treble, they're still going to look back at this as a massive, massive season, one that will go down in history, because that's still a massive achievement. It would have been much sweeter if the Premier League had been wrapped up in it as well, but I think most Liverpool fans, especially if they get the result against Real Madrid, they'll still be holding their heads up pretty high. And meanwhile, for City, look, it's a hard one. It's a hard one to sort of make heads and tails of, because obviously winning the Premier League, to do it when you have such a competitive opponent in Liverpool, always a great result. But in much the same way as Melbourne City in Australia, this is kind of to pull that sort of achievement and win your domestic competition is almost like the expectation now.
Yeah, it is. And, well, Man City got a few wins over top four sides prior to the final day as well.
Yeah, and then that was why it was almost interesting to see Pep so emotional at the end. I mean, great. I mean, literally anytime a footballer or anyone associated with football is showing any emotion, it's always a good thing. So it's nice to see. But I was like, wow, he's crying over, like, clearly the tense nature of it must have meant a lot to him. And I guess he kind of needed this in the context of everything else that had happened. So a big result for him, and I did quite enjoy seeing him do his slide in the dressing room in his underwear. Didn't expect to see Pep Guardiola in his jocks. That was not something he had on the 2022 bingo list. But yeah, there we go.
Well, Lachie,
in the bag.
There's your sliding.
There was your sliding.
In terms of some of the other results this morning, Leeds staying up with basically the final kick of the game, but they're already staying up, I believe, at that point. I think a point would have been enough.
Well, yes, they were.
But it was to make sure of
They were, because Burnley were down 2-1 as well at Newcastle and missed an incredible chance late into that second half that would have leveled things up and made it really, really interesting. But then Jack Harrison got that goal again from the edge of the box to seal it up. And if you haven't already found it on Twitter, not just watch the goal, but watch the Leeds commentary of the goal. I think Richard Bayless might have shared it on Twitter.
I would be surprised.
It's got the club commentator, and Tony Dorigo as well. And they are just going, like, again, this is like the hill that I will die on. The one big gap, the biggest gap, and it's not the quality of the players, it's not the attendances. The biggest deficiency we have here in the Australian game compared to Europe is we don't have dedicated club commentary. It's so good. It's so good. Even just to have as a moment to share around the unbridled passion. Tony Dorigo going buck wild over the top of his play-by-play commentator, and they're just saying, I need to take a breath at the end. Like, we need that. It's so good, and I'm delighted for Leeds that they have stayed up because I think they've contributed a lot, not just, historically, but in the season since they've been back. And to be honest, Burnley have probably
overstayed their welcome.
It's probably time that they had a season in the second division. I think Leeds contribute more to the fabric of this league than Burnley do.
Absolutely.
So I think most neutral fans, as well as Leeds fans, will be pretty happy with that outcome.
Absolutely. And the other outcome that went in the favour of Tottenham is Antonio Conte got it done. He got them into the Champions League. They got the job done 5-0 against Norwich. Arsenal beat Everton 5-1 as well. But, it's a fifth. You know what, though? It's a pretty decent outcome for Arsenal. Fifth, like you got to say, when you look at how the season started.
It's disappointing for Arsenal fans right now, but I think if the Arsenal fan of today went to the Arsenal fan they were at the start of the season and said, you'll finish 5, you'll be a point away from finishing 4th, provided they didn't know that they would be finishing a point behind in 4th with Tottenham, they probably would have, I think most of them, 9 out of 10 of them would have A, been surprised, and B, definitely would have taken that outcome. But also I think a lot of credit has to go to Antonio Conte and to Tottenham as well, because after the start they had to the season, not many people would have foreseen what's happened since.
Yeah, it was a very dire start under Nuno Espirito Santo, but now they've really turned things around. We've got to power through these next little bit, but as mentioned, so we talk about the teams coming back up next season. Fulham and Bournemouth will be joined by one of Huddersfield or Nottingham Forest.
What was I saying before about teams who contribute to the fabric of the Premier League?
Fulham and Bournemouth.
I like Fulham.
But we know what's going to happen. Fulham are a bit like Norwich, just the peak yo-yo team at the moment. So, but hopefully we can get some continuity of Fulham in the first division. Like if Mitrovic could score 40 goals in the top division instead of just, stats padding in the championship
I really
like he
hope
does.
so. I feel like Fulham are a team who are capable of much. Well, we've seen over the years they're capable of much more than what they are right now.
And it'll be good to see them stick around for quite a while.
They're a great club. Craven Cottage, awesome stadium. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's quickly power through this last little bit. I want to ask you about Kylian Mbappe before we get to the Scottish League Cup final.
Oh my God, yeah.
He's basically become the GM of PSG with this new deal. Like, it's pretty insane, right? Like, he's earning this ridiculous amount of money over the next 3 years to stay. When we all thought he was off to Real Madrid, the El Chiringuito guys can't believe it that he's sticking around at PSG. But he's basically now has power in in what transfers PSG make. It's absolutely bonkers. We talk about like GM LeBron in the NBA, so we now have GM Kylian in Ligue 1 next season.
I hate this. I hate this so much. Like, I get that Kylian Mbappe is probably almost 100% certain to be the world's best player over the next decade. But is any one player worth not just the level of money that's involved in this, but worth seeding the level of control that is at play here? Like, I can just see this going so wrong. And it also worries me because I think players have already got, especially in tandem with their agents, significant power in the current footballing ecosystem. To be bringing them in to give them the scope to make decisions that they are not necessarily specialised to do and could very easily become quite fractious if someone pisses them off. PSG were toxic enough. We don't have time to go into the off-field stuff. They were toxic enough as an entity without decisions like this. It might go well. They might win the Champions League. But I just don't see how giving someone who is so young, 23 years of age, this much, he is not equipped to run a football club or have this level of say. I'm sorry, it might go well, and I'm happy to be wrong if it is, but I cannot see this going well, and it is another series in the saga of mismanagement that we've seen over the stretch at PSG. Throwing money at things
for the sake
is not always the answer. There has to be more, and PSG just don't seem to learn that lesson. And honestly, I'm quite happy that they're not. I don't want them to win the Champions League.
I don't think many do.
No, I hope DOF Mbappe runs them into the ground. I hope they make him play a manager. I hope it's a complete catastrophe.
Okay, before we go, Lachie, I want to ask you about your experience at the Imperial Hotel on Saturday night, Sunday morning. Hearts, unfortunately, the result didn't go their way. A tough 2-0 loss in extra time to Rangers.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the experience because, the viewing experience watching a Hearts game in Melbourne, a bit of a niche football. Were you surprised the level of support that there is for Hearts in Melbourne? Or?
I will be honest. I took one of my friends who I went to Europe with a few years ago. Went to a Hearts game with him here, and before we were going in, I basically made the caveat to him. It's like it's probably going to be like just don't get your hopes up too much. It's probably going to be like 10 to 15 middle-aged dudes, and then we'll be younger, but we'll like have a good time. We'll make a good night. And also at the Imperial, the Melbourne Jambos, as they're called, we were told we were given our sort of own room. So I was like, oh shit, I haven't really been. Oh, excuse me. I haven't really been there before. I don't really know if I'm going to be able to find anyone.
Yeah.
I get to the door, the big double doors of the Imperial. I open them up, look towards the bar. The first thing I see is someone standing there wearing a Rudy Scatchell jersey, and I think, I have found my people. I have found my people. I went down, got myself a drink, and every single screen in the back half of the bottom level of the Imperial is playing Scottish Cup final replays. And the full back room, there was probably like, I would say 50 people at the start of the game in that room. Maybe some of them were filthy casuals, but quite a few of them were dedicated Hearts fans. And I've got some videos when the chants went up. Like, it was a great noise. It was a great atmosphere. And the first half in particular was awesome. Some of the most fun I've ever had being a Hearts fan. The next 45 plus the extra time were the complete opposite. It was extremely painful. From halftime, Rangers always looked like they were going to win. I can't really get into the ins and outs of it, but it would have been a lot worse watching that game by myself without another bunch of Hearts fans nearby. And like, some people travelled from Canberra. There was a dude from I think from South Africa.
Wow.
Who was like on a work trip
and just happened to come across.
Yeah. So there was a guy from Colac who came down. There was some dudes who came down in a bus.
Wow.
There was a dude from Adelaide and someone who was on business from South Africa.
That's insane.
That came to Melbourne.
Well, I got to ask you, Lachie.
Sure.
Was it a better fan experience than having Passatempos at Mint & Co. for the Euros final? And the whole experience around that?
Because it was my team, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare to the Lygon Street sort of scenes after the game, but it was up there. It was a really, really good night. I had a very enjoyable time. I got to see two Aussies play for Hearts. Interestingly, some of the chatter that I picked up is people are very interested in the idea of Marco Tilio maybe becoming another member of the Australian Hearts Brigade. I, for one, would be very much in favour of that. I think he'd really fill a need for Hearts. Watch this space.
Get on the phone, Lachie.
Watch this space.
Get on the phone.
How do you think all these Aussies have ended up in Scotland?
Yeah, there's got to be something. There's something there.
Look, if there are any Australian players who want to get up to Scotland, just drop me a line. I'll put you in touch with my secret agency that I definitely don't have.
I think that's where we should leave it.
Yeah, I prefer really not to speak.
Anyways, well, it's time for us to say goodbye on this Monday evening. Champions League final this weekend. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get through to that, but quick predictions for it, Lachie. Who wins?
I just think Real are going to do it. I think they're going to bleep house their way through the whole knockout phase.
Ancelotti's eyebrows going to go up at 60 minutes.
My man is going to to say, and they will win 3-0. Yeah.
I'm going to say Madrid wins 3-2, coming from 2 goals down.
Ooh.
It's going to be a Rodrigo-inspired comeback again.
2-1 extra time, Benzema brace.
Nice.
There we go.
Nice.
There's your Swift.
Well, there's your French score in Paris as well.
There's your prediction.
There's your prediction. Well, there's your sliding. But anyways, time for us to say goodbye on this Monday. Missed any of it? Head over to Spotify. Head over to wherever you get your podcast. Catch up on all of it. We spoke Premier League, Serie A, especially Serie A, and especially AC Milan after they won the Scudetto this morning. Spoke a little bit about Kylian Mbappe as well, or any of the other programs we've got here on FNR. Make sure you head over to Spotify and catch up with all of those. But for myself, Nick Tabano, and Lachie Flannigan, we'll be back next Monday. Another edition of the Euro Show, post-Champions League final edition. And we'll see you then.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? Attaccare!